Strange. Vice Mayor Strange, you'll address her properly.
You can kiss my foot.
Mr. Lincoln, you're out of order.
FBI, we are asking you to investigate this council. Please look into this council, how they award contracts, the bid process, how they use their positions to benefit their friends and themselves, how they use their positions to attack residents and critics and neighbors and business competition. FBI, will you please look into this?
And I welcome the FBI here. If you notice, Mr. Thompson, with his plea for the FBI and his watchdog group, the city runs the cleanest in this whole county. I guarantee
He was served a federal subpoena this morning.
We did receive a subpoena this morning, and we're going to cooperate 100% with the subpoena.
And most of you who were involved up here, you gaslighted me. You tried to say I was crazy. And now we know that that's not true. And there's a lot of other issues I've been asking about as well.
Some very interesting developments in the Lynn Haven corruption trial. This thing is going fast now. We're near the crescendo of this more than 2.5-year-long saga in which Lynn Haven's mayor, Margo Anderson, and developer James Finch were indicted on more than 80 counts total. WMBB finally got around to publishing a story about a motion that defendant Finch filed 6 days ago. They finally got around to that. But as usual, it was dishonest as hell. I looked on their Facebook page, WMBB. I wanted to see what people were saying about it. Well, people weren't saying much. I mean, this is their biggest story, right? They broke it. It's award-winning. And they can post something about the Lynn Haven corruption case, which is near the trial date. I mean, it's happening fast, big news coming out. And they have 5 likes and maybe 3 comments. It's amazing. I don't know if the public, or if people are just tired of that story, or if they just don't believe WMBB. I hope it's the latter, because they're lying to you. And in the story that they finally got around to publishing, they minimize the important stuff, I don't know, the bad actors and the bad acts and that sort of thing. And exactly what they were, because they were startling, shocking to the conscience even, which is one of the standards, by the way, for federal Judge Mark Walker to either throw out the remaining 2 counts against Margo Anderson. I think there are 4 left against James Finch. But before he can do that, by law, he's got to issue all of the lesser sanctions first. So there were 64 charges. 62 have been thrown out for Margo Anderson alone. But the weirdest thing happened yesterday. The craziest thing. A news story comes out that the first prosecutor, then U.S. Attorney Larry Keefe, who had promised to clean up public corruption in Bay County and who I told you would, I told you I believe in him. Well, a crazy story came out. He of course, resigned after Joe Biden took office because he was a Trump appointee. And when Biden took office, he had to go. And Governor DeSantis scooped up Larry Keefe, who is by profession an attorney in the Okaloosa area. So Governor DeSantis said, we've got a problem. Want to make sure we don't have illegal aliens coming into Florida. So we need a safety czar, and you're the guy. So Larry Keefe was the safety czar, is the safety czar. And do you remember the big story where they flew like 40 immigrants to Martha's Vineyard? I thought it was terrific, but it drew lawsuits. Soros-funded organizations sued. And in these lawsuits and other lawsuits against the DOT, they weren't getting public records. They weren't getting discovery evidence. And as it happens, the former U.S. attorney who originally charged Mayor Margo Anderson on 64 counts, I'm going to show you part of that press conference. It turns out he's been using a private email with the name Clarice Starling from Silence of the Lambs. So he has a fake email. It's a real email. It's a Gmail. It's heat19.heat19@gmail.com, and it's attached to Clarice Starling. And evidently, according to all these reports that have been coming out, he uses them to conduct public affairs in order to hide public records. And it gets worse. It gets much worse. And I'm going to show you all of this right after this.
When your life is on the line, hire the lawyer who lives in our community, works in our community, and worships in our community. I'm Al Saulene, your Panama City Beach lawyer. 850-215-0628.
Don't let back pain and neck pain get you down. Find relief at Brown Chiropractic Center on St. Andrews Boulevard in Panama City. Dr. Sherry Brown helps people heal naturally with chiropractic adjustments and deep tissue massage. Call 769-3777. So on August 19, 2020, Mayor Margo Anderson and City Attorney Adam Albritton were arrested. Albritton has pled guilty. Mayor Anderson has not pled guilty. She said she'll go to trial and that she's innocent, and she said that the whole time. And as the evidence comes out, it appears that's exactly the case. And it's worse than that. When you discover the planted evidence and all of the false statements to the grand jury to secure the indictment in the first place, no wonder 62 of the 64 charges have been thrown out. And no wonder right now, Federal Judge Mark Walker is looking at a list of bad actors, the lead prosecutor, the FBI agent, the sheriff's top investigator, and I think 3 Lynn Haven officials for sanctions. Sanctions could be a lot of things. Maybe they're thrown out and don't get, that evidence won't be put into trial. They won't be able to testify in trial, whatever. Maybe it could be worse than that. Maybe he could refer criminal sanctions against them, refer them, criminal referral to the DOJ, whatever. I don't know. Or nothing. Or dismiss the whole thing. Judge Walker's looking at all this now because it's awful. It's awful. Everybody involved, practically everybody involved in removing the mayor of Lynn Haven to clean up the town, to clean up the county, almost everybody involved is compromised and is now possibly going to be sanctioned by Judge Walker. And then we find out the guy who used to be the U.S. attorney, Larry Keefe, who resigned and is now the safety czar for Governor DeSantis. Turns out he's got an private email that he's been hiding public records on, according to reports. But let's go back and watch August 19th, 2020. And let's see former U.S. attorney, then U.S. attorney Larry Keefe, and how much hope we had that he was going to clean up the town, because one thing the public needs is transparency. This is WMBB, and this was their live stream.
But before we address the particulars that are alleged in today's indictment, I want to share some perspectives about the ongoing work of our public trust unit. Every successful public corruption prosecution sends a powerful message to corrupt government officials and to officials who are being tempted by opportunities for corruption. And that message is, we will come for you. But as importantly, these corruption prosecutions also send a message to every hardworking and law-abiding citizen that the integrity of those that actually run our government is essential to the continuation of our democracy. And your federal law enforcement agencies, with the partnership of local law enforcers like Sheriff Ford, are out there serving you, bringing to justice those who corrupt our government and who violate the public's trust. Our public trust unit is able to bring these complicated and sensitive cases because of the significant resources that we are devoting to corruption investigations and prosecutions. We are proud to partner with the greatest law enforcement agencies in the world, including the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and in this case, Sheriff Tommy Ford in the Bay County Sheriff's Office. It is absolutely amazing to observe the commitment that the FBI brings to these cases, to follow the money, to decipher complicated paper trails, to find key witnesses, and to use the most sophisticated law enforcement tools in the world to build and bring these important cases. We will use every aggressive legal tool at our disposal, such as wiretaps, surveillance, confidential informants, cooperators, undercover agents, and stings. We will also rely, as we have done here, on the cooperation of elected and other government officials whose informed knowledge can help us investigate and prosecute corrupt government officials. In closing my remarks today, it is absolutely critical that I make absolutely clear to the people in this community this important truth. The vast majority of those who are in public service, the women and men who serve in all levels of our government, are truly honest and dedicated public.
All right. You know, I just caught something. I just caught something there. He said that he relies on the knowledge of elected officials to inform them about crooked officials, as in this case, he said. Does that mean that the U.S. Attorney's Office and the FBI were tipped off about Mayor Margo Anderson being corrupt by other government officials? Because if that's the case, now, right, in retrospect, now we know that there are a lot of government officials in Bay County. Even the FBI told a judge that to get a GAC warrant, search warrant, in that FBI affidavit. So I would love to know, and I wonder if the defense has ever found out, because the defense was able to get transcripts of what was told to the grand jury. The defense was able to get the investigators' notes. Did you ever find out which local officials said, hey, we've got a tip? It's Mayor Anderson. She's the crook. Who said that? What government official said that? Whew. Wouldn't you love to know that? Whew. I miss that. You know what's, as time goes on, right, as things continue to happen, when you see things you saw a year ago or 2 years ago, you see it with different eyes, with new knowledge, with critical distance. And things like that jump out. Wow. All right, I got to show you though what Larry Keefe is doing now. He's not the U.S. attorney anymore. He's the safety czar. And big stories are coming out about him. Let me show you. Oh, boy. I mean, are you kidding me? This is the guy. Is it true? That's what the reports say. Is it true that the former U.S. attorney that charged Margo Anderson on 64 counts, 62 of which are now thrown out, the final 2 are being scrutinized, that he had a private email in order to hide public records, and they had to be pulled out of him by the Florida Office of Open Government? And he's using an email with the name Clarice Starling? You know, what we're seeing here is that the corruption is much, and I'm not saying that he's guilty of corruption yet, but it doesn't look good, all right? But I do know, I have seen I've seen planted evidence against Margo Anderson. I've seen all kinds of stuff. But the brazenness by which they do it. I mean, Bay County now has emails that the Lynn Haven police chief, Ricky Ramey, on September 1st, 2018, as a favor to his boss / bro, then city manager Michael White, wrongly arrested a woman because Michael White said the bitch forgive me, the bitch effed up. Okay, forgive me. That's what the text said, and I tried to clean it up. And so Ramey didn't have to be nudged. He said, we'll arrest her ass. And then he said, Shell's working tonight. We can do it. That's another officer that he happens to be the same officer that arrested James Finch's wife on BS charges after a week ago or so. Oh, my gosh. And then Michael White said, oh, if Shell's working, he said, I told him to set her ass up. This is how they talk. It's on text messages, public record text messages. They were city officials talking about government business, and WMBB acts as though they're top secret squirrel documents that nobody's allowed to have. It's utter and complete Bolshevik. They're lying to you. The whole town, the sheriff, the state attorney, FDLE, everybody knows that happened. Because Michael White's other bro buddy was upset with a lady. And so they did that. WMBB doesn't tell you those things. They just say allegations of a wrong arrest. But on the stand, Chief Ricky Ramey said it was a good arrest. That's what WMBB's reporting was. That's not reporting. That's PR. Am I right or wrong? Okay. I want to show you the news that just came out yesterday about U.S. Attorney Larry Keefe, former U.S. Attorney, now safety czar, and his secret squirrel email message that he uses to conduct public business. And the only reason that would happen, the only reason, is to conceal public records right after this.
You want to look good? You want to feel good? Little John's Big and Tall is where it's at. Right across the street from Sky's Pizza Pie, 5700 North Davis Highway. You can find out more online at littlejohnsbigandtall.com. He's also a member of the iTex trading community, where your iTex dollars are welcome.
It's a hot time in Florida, and my friend Ryan could make sure your air conditioning is running at peak efficiency. He could even install a new one, built to a higher standard, American standard. Find out more at pcairrepair.com. All right. Let's go to the story right here. Look at this. Wow. Emails show use of private emails encryption app in discussing Florida migrant relocation. So this is State business, it is specifically about the flight of migrants to Martha's Vineyard that was evidently, according to these reports, was coordinated outside of the sunshine, outside of public record. Okay, so this is Orlando Sentinel. This was written yesterday. Newly released records from Governor Ron DeSantis confirmed that his private public safety czar, Larry Keefe, communicated with a Destin-based contractor hired to fly migrants from Texas to Massachusetts using a private email account with the call name Clarice Starling. They also confirmed that he used an encryption app to chat with James Montgomery of Vertol Systems, the military contractor the state has paid nearly $3.5 million to relocate migrants to so-called sanctuary states under a program administered by the Florida Department of Transportation, but overseen by Keefe. By the way, I think that's great. No, I don't think it's great, but there was a delicious irony to that. Okay, I don't want to get into all that. So I'm asking you to be able, if you support that, and I can understand it, I'm asking you to be able to say, all right, I support that, but the way it was done was wrong, and it is connected to the person who did it is the very same person who brought the initial charges against Mayor Margo Anderson, who removed a mayor of a city on charges that we now know were bogus, and they knew they were bogus. That's all I'm asking for, is to be able to focus on what this is about. Based on these new findings, the Florida Center for Government Accountability has filed a motion in its ongoing suit against the FDOT, asking to submit the new emails as evidence that not all the documents requested were released and that Montgomery provided false evidence at trial. Hell, that sounds exactly like what is going on in the persecution, because it has not been a prosecution, of Margo Anderson and of developer James Finch. They still, to this moment, do not have all the Brady material, the exculpatory material, evidence that could show that they are not guilty. In fact, others are guilty, just like FBI agent Borghini told another judge to secure the GAC search warrant. Sounds the same. Hiding evidence. So they say, we filed a motion in response to this production in the case pending against FDOT. I think these records are quite revealing as well as humorous. Clarice Starling was a fictional FBI profiler in the movie Silence of the Lambs who interviewed Hannibal Lecter, a serial killer who ate one victim's liver with some fava beans and a nice Chianti. Did I say that right? For those highfalutin folks watching, you got to forgive me. Fanciest thing I drink is an old fashioned. To gain insights into another serial killer who skinned his victims. Okay. The migrant relocation program was the brainchild of DeSantis, who was financed with $12 million approved by the Florida legislature. Okay, so this is going into the program. I don't want to get all into the program. What I want to do is this right here. Okay, the new motion asked the judge in the FDOT case to reopen the evidentiary hearing. Sound familiar? Wow. And accept the emails as new evidence relating to the documents in Montgomery's possession that had not been produced before, and that the evidence shows Montgomery gave false testimony under oath at the hearing held on November 29. The email and attachment were records not previously released, the government said, and refutes Montgomery's testimony about a draft sent via text message that claimed it was a voluntary consent form for passengers to sign and not a draft for a contract. In other words, okay, we're getting closer here. It appears, according to the reports, that Larry Keefe, the guy who indicted Margo Anderson 64 counts, it appears that he was using he was using a private email to hide public records, that he was drafting the proposal for service to steer the bid rigging essentially, so that his client could get a contract with the state for $1.5 million. Hello. This is so unbelievably disappointing. Other emails not previously released rebut Montgomery's testimony, the motion says, and show Keefe provided draft language for Montgomery to propose to the Department of Transportation. In another email, Keefe instructs Montgomery this is the email channel to use. In other words, use the Clary Starling email, not my public one. And let's communicate on Signal, the encrypted app, so that they are not communicating on public record. You know, about 10 years ago, there was a Speaker of the House select that never became the Speaker of the House because he was involved in something like this. And there was Ray Odom. There was a businessman who used a hanger of his. I don't remember the whole story, so I don't want to butcher it. But Ray Odom, I believe, ended up going to prison, and the Speaker of the House was supposed to be the Speaker of the House in the same area, in the Okaloosa area. He was removed. He was never the Speaker of the House. Same type of stuff. Public record's public record. And when you're in a court proceeding, you got to give up the evidence. Excuse me. My goodness. All right, let's go on. Let's finish this up. The new emails also point to other records that so far have not been released, the motion says, and none of the emails came from Montgomery. The motion also states that Montgomery has not produced all the records requested of him. This is the guy who got the $1.5 million contract that allegedly Larry Keefe drafted and sent to him through the private email. The recent EOG production demonstrates that Vertol, that's the company owned by Montgomery, failed to produce records in the possession that were responsive to the request. The governor's office had no additional comments beyond the Office of Open Government letter. That's who ended up getting these emails that were being hidden by Keefe. Keefe and Montgomery did not immediately respond to requests for comment. The new emails received by FCGA from the governor's office of open records on Thursday explained that in a search for additional records between Keefe and Vertol systems that we may have missed, we just missed a few emails. The Office of Open Government interviewed Keefe, who suggested that they search for the keyword heat in his personal account. So he didn't give it up, and then he ended up getting interviewed. No 302s involved, though. Just the Office of Open Government said, hey, we're missing some stuff here. And he says, well, look at my personal email, 191keefe@gmail.com, and just search for the word heat, and you might find them. Well, it didn't find anything. That failed to produce any new documents. After that, Keefe said, well, try looking for heat 19. Keefe told Montgomery that was a call sign given to him by now retired Lieutenant General Donald Worster, former commander of special operations at Herbert Field in Okaloosa County. Keefe was in private practice in Okaloosa County for decades before he was appointed by former President Trump as U.S. Attorney for the Northern District of Florida. President Joe Biden removed Keefe, and dozens of Trump appointees took office, and Keefe was appointed by DeSantis to run his new public safety department at $131,000 a year. Keefe said that was a call sign he used with the general when they exchanged messages. The Office of Open Government in Florida said the keyword search led us to discover another email address belonging to Mr. Keefe that he was hiding. heat19.heat19@gmail.com, which the Office of Open Government did not know about. He was hiding it while he was being interviewed. The name on the Heat 19 account was Clarice Starling, a related call sign used by Mr. Keefe in previous private work with people in the military community. According to Keefe, he created and sometimes used this account while in private law practice to communicate via email in this setting. The company that got the contract, his friend, Vertol Systems, was a former client of Keefe's when he was in private practice. Holy shnikes. The Office of Open Government said after discovering the Heat 19 email address, it conducted a search for responsive records involving this address. This search yielded the records we are now producing. Please note that we are producing all records we could locate with Heat 19 email that pertain to the Martha Vineyards flight, even records that fall outside the date range and scope of your request, said the Office of Open Government. I wonder, don't you, that if Larry Keefe has a secret Clarice Starling email, wouldn't you love to know, shouldn't we know, if he was communicating with any of these local public officials that he said gave important information to indict Margo Anderson 2.5 years ago on 64 counts that we know are all bogus? Bernie, they're not all bogus. There's 2 left, pal. Tell the truth and tell it right. Okay. Okay, so more emails. But wouldn't you love to do search word Anderson in that private email? Right? Because remember, public records, it doesn't matter the device or the account. That's a private account, Bernie. But if there's public business, like, I don't know, the removal of a mayor in Lynn Haven, that should be public record. You say not during an ongoing investigation, an ongoing prosecution, for God's sake. All right. Well, when it's over, how about then? Well, Bernie, he can just delete them and you'll never know. If anybody knows better than that, it ought to be the former U.S. attorney, don't you think? Wouldn't recommend it, is what I'm trying to say. I'm no forensic investigator, but I wouldn't recommend that. Cover up is usually worse than the, So it goes on. I mean, I'm not going to read the rest. Well, you get the gist of it, right? You can look up that story. I've posted about it. I'll show you this, though. So disappointing. So disappointing. I told you guys for how long that the Sheriff's Office Public Trust Unit, that's what they told me. They knew about so much corruption. They were on it. Sheriff Ford is on it. More integrity than anybody. Everybody combined. Got the crack detective on it. Crack investigator. Public corruption in this town is toast, and they know it. Plus a senior FBI agent, special agent, senior prosecutor. I'm going to clean this town up. Then Larry Keefe marches in, and I said, look at this guy. He's serious. Remember I told you that? It's going to happen. I was misled. And here we are. Hoping and praying that federal judge Mark Walker takes this very seriously, and I know he does. Who knows? maybe things will work out for the best. Maybe what they meant for evil will end up being for good. You know, you got to have hope. All right, here we go. So check this out. This is last thing I'll show you about this. So what you see here is a Politico article that came out today. And here's what I wrote on my post about, 5 hours ago. The former U.S. attorney who charged Mayor Margo Anderson on 64 counts of public corruption used a secret email to steer a $1.5 million contract to a former client, according to news reports. Larry Keefe resigned after Joe Biden took office and is now the safety czar for Governor DeSantis. Keefe was evidently hiding discovery evidence in an ongoing lawsuit against the DOT. Florida's Office of Open Government finally discovered Keefe's secret email, which was revealed yesterday as heat.19. Heat.19, I messed up there. I should say heat.19 at Gmail under the name Clary Starling. He had been using it for several years. So the mayor of Lynn Haven, who was removed from office in August 2020 and called by him a virus of corruption at the press conference, has 62 counts thrown out since then. Now, Mayor Anderson is facing only 2 counts, and federal judge Mark Walker is considering issuing sanctions while reviewing evidence that shows vindictive prosecution against her and developer James Finch. So in here, Politico says Keefe used a personal email account to send the owner, his friend, Montgomery, draft language, basically steered a contract, basically wrote a contract proposal, nearly word for word, submitted to the Florida Department of Transportation as part of his proposal for the state contract, which was ultimately approved. This appears to be a purposeful attempt to evade Florida's public record laws. A public official helped draft a bid by a private company for government services, says the co-founder of Integrity Florida, a nonprofit government watchdog. Quote, that's bid rigging and that's potentially illegal, end quote. So here we are. I'm sharing with you these new reports. It's so disappointing, but I had to tell you about it. So where are we now? Well, where we are now is Judge Walker is looking at the list of bad actors that WMBB still has not told you about. They still have not used that word, but they did name half of them. And considering sanctions. The prosecutors have about 5 days, I think, to respond to it. And then I believe the defendants have, probably another 10 days to issue a rebuttal. So I'd say in 2 or 3 weeks, Judge Walker is going to either issue a ruling on these bad actors and bad acts, or maybe he'll say, you know what, let's have another hearing and bring these people on the stand again and get to the bottom of it. Or maybe he'll throw the whole thing out, or maybe he'll do nothing and say, we're going to trial. We don't know. That's where we're at now. And while this is happening, since the evidentiary hearing that shows evidence of vindictive prosecution, since then, well, Police Chief Ricky Ramey arrested Finch's wife on a complete bogus charge, and that's going to come back to bite him in the butt, I believe. Wait till you hear about that. And we find out the former U.S. attorney that brought the original charges, well, he's been using a private email to, steer bids for $1.5 million to one of his former clients. Keep it on the down low. He even helped write it. According to we're going to find out because there's a lawsuit about it. And the discovery that they tried to hide is coming out. Similar parallel tracks. Vindictive prosecution over here. Vindictive prosecution over here. hiding public records and evidence here, hiding public records and evidence here. It almost seems like I'm thinking of a word. What's the word? Oh, pattern. I'm gonna get out of here. I can't at this point. I'm gonna keep bringing you information though. I'm gonna do my best anyway. So thank you so much for being with me. Thank you, sponsors. Thank you, those of you who are patrons. Thank you, those of you like the Unknown Patriot. Excuse me. Thank you to the Unknown Patriot for supporting our efforts. That's just amazing, isn't it? All right. I will see you soon. Thank you so much for being with me.